Yo guys, what is up? Welcome back to some more Zero Hour. Now, I've got something very interesting for you today, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've been creating this over a number of weeks, making tweaks to it, changed it a little bit, thought what it's going to be called, and I've basically built this creation, and there's multiple uses for it. You could use this creation that I've shown you today to either review your own replays and see maybe why you lost, which category of my 6 categories that I'm going to show you in a second to figure out why you lost. You could use this guide to work out why certain players, like for example Excal or Size or whatever, are such strong players and how you might beat them down in the future, or which areas you need to improve on, or which areas they might be weaker at. And yeah, you could probably use this for a number of things. I'm probably going to call this video How to Beat Pro Players, or a guide on how to help you beat pro players, but you could use it for a number of other things. You could use this purely to figure out why is Excal such a decent player, and that's kind of what this started off as. But it kind of also is a thing to review your replays and stuff. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag here today. Hopefully you find it useful. I'm going to show you 6 categories. One other thing to say is, because my head's been in this for a number of weeks, you know when you're looking at something for so long, and sometimes you need to just kind of step back and sometimes glare in the obvious things you might be missing. Or also I've noticed that with myself as well over the years, while I've been getting slightly older, not that I'm super old now, I'm 31 years old, but like from a few years ago, I viewed things differently as I view it now. So it could well be in a few years I think about this completely differently, and maybe I disagree with some of the stuff I'm going to say now. But as of this right now moment, that's not even correct English, but as of right now, this is kind of the way I see things, and I think you could probably use this, at least, even if it's only 90% correct or 75% correct, you could probably use this to help you understand why certain players are so good and what you can do to improve in the different aspects of Zero Hour. So yeah, a bit of a complicated intro, but I just wanted to get that out there. And obviously I haven't ran through this before. I'm completely doing this unscripted and whatever, so we're doing this completely off the cuff. So if it lasts 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, then yeah, without further ado, I'm going to get into it. So we've got basically 6 categories. The first one is grand strategy. So I'm going to break Zero Hour down into the 6 categories that obviously I said. I'll tell you what they are. So there's going to be grand strategy, which is basically like your build order. Like when you go into the game, this is your core foundation of what you're going to be doing. Are you going to be doing 2 supplies War Factory Barracks as USA, or are you going to be doing a drop, or are you going to be doing something completely different and crazy? There's also a category in here for like mini decisions, for decisions you're going to make throughout the game. Like, for example, when to base trade and stuff like that, which build into TNT and all stuff like that. We've got micro and macro covered in here. We've got the mental aspects, like mental game, when you've been mentally defeated by maybe a stronger player and you're a little bit scared and nervous and stuff like that. And we've got one other category. Multitasking. I actually forgot what it was. So yeah, I think if you put these 6 categories together, I think we're covering at least like 90% of what Zero Hour is. And I think you could use this to either improve yourself or understand why a player like Excal, for example, is such a strong player. So without further ado, without me talking anymore, I'm just going to get into this. So the first thing in Zero Hour that I consider to be what's the first thing you do, the first thing you need to formulate in your head whenever you start a game in 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, whatever, you need to have a solid build order. There's certain players in Zero Hour, like for example Rage, Size, a load of the good players, to be honest, who are able to be creative, and they go in with a super solid build order. And I think this is what makes, like, for example, Excal so strong, is because whenever he goes into a game, he's already formulated in his head, like, his build order is super strong. So if you're ever going to take down a good player in the future, I think you need to really think about your build order. For example, a lot of people, can you see my mouse? Yeah, you can see my mouse. A lot of people are, I'm in the top players, they're going for 2 supplies, and then they're also incorporating some oils, and they're starting off with a super solid build order. They've thought about, okay, if he's going to make a V and a fast V in my base, okay, I'm going to do a fast airfield, I'm going to get a helix out. And they're thinking about, okay, what could the enemy do, and what's the best build order that could optimally beat anything that the other player can do. And usually, like in GLA Mirrors, for example, if you're watching Excal, he's always getting the oils very early and then taking an economic lead. Or if, yeah, I mean, no matter what the matchup, oils are very important. Creativity is also important as well. I mean, if you just want to go in there and at least equal some of the players, you can just go in and copy certain players, but also I think it pays off to be creative as well, because if you create a build order, you understand why you're doing things, not just outright copying someone. So yeah, I think solid builds should always be your focus. So what I mean by solid builds is not always doing a no eco and always doing a helix rush and all that kind of stuff. If you watch like a player like Size, how often is he doing all this lame stuff like no ecos and helix rushes and stuff like that? I think that needs to be a part of your build orders. You will lame sometimes and you will do unexpected rushes, but if you're doing that every single time, I mean, if you see how successful like Size is, for example, Logica, Rage, all these kind of players, they are doing well. Excal especially is doing all-ins sometimes, like no ecos when it suits you or when the matchup is pretty bad and you need to do a no eco. But the primary focus should be solid opening build orders, like where you get your economy rolling, you play the game as it's meant to be played, 2 or 3 war factories, and you're spamming loads of units, not just rushing every single time. Oh, this is coming in the wrong order, but preparation and testing. So, for example, yeah, if you've got a particular tournament coming up, like a really good example of this is when I played Boyka recently in, was it some tournament? I don't remember what tournament it was. It was a challenge, just a sponsored challenge, like a $50 challenge or whatever. And there was some set matchups. It was like the opening game was an infantry mirror on Farmlands of the Fallen, for example. So do you know what I did a couple of hours before the games? Not only did I warm up, but I also practiced just in a sandbox mode, opening build orders as the infantry game. And if you go back and watch that challenge, between me and Boyka, I think I even typed it to him, I've already tested your build order. He went for 2 supplies, 2 war factories, which I'd already tested, and I wrote down at like 3 minutes 30 like how many units I had out and where they were, and in the end I decided that going for a 3 dozer build order was better. So yeah, preparation and testing goes a long way. Just that even a little 2 minutes preparation can take you a long way. And I even use that as like a mental game, actually. When in the middle of the games versus Boyka, I even told him I've tried your build order and it doesn't work against what I'm doing. And then lo and behold, I went and won that set like 7-1. So I'd prepared everything for that, and I definitely think that helped. Not saying that's the outright reason why I won. Maybe I was just playing better on the day or whatever, but I definitely believe a little bit of preparation, and other top players as well will tell you that a little bit of preparation will help you a long way. And where I've put that could be better in a group as well. Sometimes you might want to train with a mate. For example, I was struggling at one point, like with tank against laser, when the laser was always doing a no eco on me and stuff, and I actually played like 10 games with Roll. If you know a player called Roll, we played like 10 or 15 games where we no eco'd each other and tried different things with tank, and if he did a laser turret drop. And yeah, you might be better in a group, you might be able to talk, especially among the really smart players, you might be able to talk and bounce off each other and create new and exciting build orders and like know how to react to stuff. So here is research. We live in an age now where in Zero Hour you can go on Gentle and download absolutely anyone's replay, any of the pro replays. You can go on gamereplays.org and get all the tournament replays and download all the World Series games and stuff like that. Whereas back in the day, like in 2005, 2006, when all the older pros were playing, they didn't have Gentle. You weren't able to just go and download any replay, like to get a replay with big size in it or whatever, or any other top player blind and all this lot. So I'm hearing was actually like getting a replay like that was like a golden egg. It was like really, really hard to get. So how could you ever see the pros playing? There was no streamers, there was no YouTube videos, anything like that. But now there's like 950 streamers and YouTubers. There's all my tutorials and stuff that you can go on Gentle and download any replay. So we're living in basically an information age. So all the information there is available to you if you want to go and check what build order. Maybe you're weak with infantry or something like that, infantry against GLA. So you go and download a lot of infantry against GLA games and review them and watch them and then practice and test them, like I've said over here as well. Where I said before, obviously you're going to have solid build orders to be your primary focus, but don't be afraid of being ruthless and lame as well. So for example, doing a no eco when you need to, dozer hunting when you need to. If you're watching Excal, for example, his ruthlessness is like off the scale. He will consistently go for dozer hunts and just bunker up, do whatever it needs to get you the win. Whether it's lame or not, all you care about is the win, and that is it. The next category then is micro. Micro is controlling individual units and getting the most out of every single unit. So for example, the best example is like when you're controlling some Vs, you might have 2 full Vs like you can see there on the screen. You've done a no eco. The micro is the micromanagement of those individual units. So, and trying to get the most out of them, which I think is actually the next point. This is something that Rage said many, many years ago that I've always remembered. Try and get the most out of every single unit. So for example, let's say you do a TNT inside of someone's base. you successfully hit a building, you killed a supplier, you've killed a war factory, and then some players will just like kind of leave that tech and let the tech die. But what that technical could do then is probably run over a few rangers for a start, kill the rangers so he's not able to do a combat drop inside of one of your buildings. You'd also get a little bit of XP from killing those rangers. And even if your technical is still going to die, at least you've killed a few more rangers, got yourself a bit more XP, and then maybe you've killed another V, or maybe you've escaped with it, or maybe you've ran over a few MDs as well and just caused that little bit of extra damage. Or for example, a flamer in someone's base, you flame down one building, flamer's about to die, but instead you micro it out of the way a little bit and you tuck yourself behind a supply and you flame down a few more workers, or you flame down a few more quads or something like that, getting the most out of every single unit. I also believe walk before you can run. You've probably heard this in life, and whether you're learning a new musical instrument or learning a new game or anything, don't try and just jump in and do the most crazy micro and the most crazy strats and whatever. Start off basic. Maybe you just want to go through the campaign first, or maybe you just want to play against like players the same kind of level as you and just work on your V micro. Don't try and go in and try and do everything at once. This is a gradual process, and as long as you're getting 1 or 2% better every day and slowly gradually improving, just do that. Don't try and run in and try and be a big size or an XCal on day number 1. So retaliation mode, this is only something I've recently thought of because I've seen XCal uses this. So typically XCal will use retaliation mode, which is an option inside of the options. You can change it even on the fly during in game. And I've started basically copying what XCal is doing. So XCal is not using retaliation mode when he's USA and he wants to control his Vs, but he is turning it on for the other factions. For example, when he's China's, or when he is what's the other army? GLA. When he's GLA. Basically what retaliation mode is if one of your units is getting attacked, it will turn around and start firing. Whereas if you don't have retaliation mode on, it's possible that the unit will just sit there and it will take all the damage. Now the problem is with USA, if you have that on, your Vs that are fully loaded, they're like they're expensive, and you only got a few of them. Typically don't want them running off and fighting battles and dying, because they're really, really fragile units. They can go down to like, I don't know, a nuke battle master or whatever if they get a little bit too close, so you might want to keep it off for that. But at the moment I'm trialing, basically copying what XCal does and using the retaliation mode for the other factions, GLA and for China. So what that helps with, for example, a really good example is like on Twilight Flame. If you're doing a stealth air game, for example, and you've got loads and loads of quads and your quads start getting attacked, they will all, as long as they get an attack, they will all get in a position where they're all fighting. All the units will be fighting more often. So yeah, I think retaliation mode is a good one. If you go back to the World Series and watch the World Series final between XCal and Fargo, there was a game where Fargo was getting attacked, his flamers were dying, and they weren't turning around and shooting, and I think they were just like purely getting wrecked, and like three or four flamers just got wrecked and they weren't turning around and fighting. But if they were, he would have done a lot better in that particular match. Okay, so macro. So macro is, the way I see it is, I haven't looked at the exact definition of this, but the way I see it, I've got a pretty good idea, is everything else you're doing. So the micro is the micromanagement of those 2Vs, for example, or your individual units. Like, I don't know, maybe you're fighting a tank versus tank game and you're getting your battle masters and moving the weak ones back or whatever. That is micro. But for macro is everything else, like building a supply, expanding, queuing up a load of Vs. When you've got 3 or 4 war factories and you're queuing up a load of scorpions on a free-for-all or whatever. It's basically everything else. So yeah, making units, expanding. Don't know if it's an exact science to say that it's controlling large armies as well, but I would consider it. Let's say you've got a massive army of like 50 tanks, and maybe you've got 2 of those armies. That's more macro, because you're not going to be moving the tanks in and out individually, but you're going to be like attack moving here, attack moving there, guard mode in there, and stuff like that. So it's the more bulky, bigger things, building the Vs, expanding, all that kind of stuff. Large bases, large maps. That's where, like when someone says a macro game, it's a large map with loads of supplies. You've got to take over the whole map, build loads of black markets, and then spam from loads of war factories. That's more of a macro game. Whereas a micro game is like, for example, when you're going to do a no eco, or you're playing just like a 2 supply game and you've got to micro your tanks back and forth and get the most out of every unit. So something that might help both your micro and your macro is your hotkeys. So learning all the hotkeys inside of 0 Hour. And someone like XCal and Size, Scuba, some of these players, I don't think they know every single hotkey, and sometimes they are manually just clicking, like down at the bottom of the screen, like the click in a V or the click in a quad and stuff like that. So an area where you could probably excel, I mean, as long as you've got your build order and your macro on point, an area where you could, if you were level in those 2 categories, an area where you could perhaps overtake him is by your hotkeys and also changing them if necessary. So for example, I change my laser lock from L over to R so I can press it quicker, because my hand typically sits over on the left side of the keyboard, like where this guy's finger is right now. So yeah, hotkeys can also, well, that actually leads me on to the next one, like control groups, like putting your war factory on 1, putting your barracks on 2, and air units on 5 and 6, and your schnooks on 0 and 9 and whatever. And typically we're always using the same numbers as well. Don't like one game have your main army on 1 and then have it on 5 the next match and whatever. Try and get in a habit of using the same things over and over again. So then when you want to select your army, you'll naturally just press 1 and you'll go to your army. Activity, it kind of comes into all of this really. The grand strategy, the micro, macro, all the other things I'm going to cover as well. Because the more and more you play, the more and more muscle memory you're gaining, which is basically your fingers remember how to click things super quick. So yeah, everyone knows the more and more you do something, the more and more your muscles are kind of gaining that internal memory about how to do something. So for example, if you picked up a guitar today for the first time ever, your fingers trying to get in all them positions that you require to press all the strings and to strum it and whatever will all feel awkward and like you're not able to properly do it. But someone who's been playing for 5 years, every single day, they would be able to pick it up and with ease put their fingers into position. And the same thing goes for Zero Hour and any other game really. How you hold the mouse, how you click with your fingers, your hand stretching across the keyboard to press all the different buttons and stuff like that. Activity is going to help you in terms of your micro. It's going to make your micro better. Just picking up the mouse. If you have like a week off Zero Hour and don't even touch the mouse once, don't even touch your computer once, and then you go micro some Vs, it's going to be a lot worse than if you've been playing consistently for like 3 hours. As long as you're not tired or whatever. But if you've been playing for like 3 hours, your micro is going to be more on point than if you've had that week off. So activity comes into it a lot. Into your macro comes into just practice and experience, but also just recent activity, like a warm-up or whatever, before you go into some big games. But yeah, micro, all of these things are basically covered by activity. So I've kind of just filled a spot there, but that one really applies to everything that I'm gonna say, including this one, which is in-game decisions. So example of in-game decisions. So a really big one that you'll often come across, even if you play Zero Hour today. If you play 10 games today, I guarantee you would come across this one, which is in a USA versus GLA game. You've done a little bit of damage to USA in the early game, but then lo and behold, the 3 or 4 Vs with an ambulance push across the map and they're killing your main base, they're killing your arms there, and you've got a lot of techs in a tunnel and you've got a decision to make. Do you fight those Vs or do you go into the enemy base and try and do a base trade? That's an in-game decision. Another thing, activity will help you get better at an experience, will help you get better at transitioning units. So let's say, for example, your tank against USA and you've been producing GATs and ECMs most of the game, but then, I don't know, maybe he starts making like laser tanks or something like that, or Crusaders. That's when you might want to transition. You might want to transition into a Helix. You might want to transition into Napalm Mix. So knowing when to transition, that I'd class that as another in-game decision. Where to move your armies, where to attack from, when to send a flame around the side and try and flame his base, all kind of stuff like that. When to expand, when to tack up. So like, do you get your third supply or do you get your propaganda? Which TNT do you go for? So do you TNT as war factory, do you TNT as power in his barracks, or do you TNT as supply, for example? Or when you're defending, maybe you're under a big attack, remembering to not only just fend off the current attack, as long as you're going to survive, maybe you want to, whilst he's doing that, maybe just send 1 V around the side and try and hunt his dozers or something whilst you're defending, whilst he's busy. As long as you're going to survive, go for that counter attack as well. So yeah, in-game decisions. But there's probably loads more examples. They're just the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. So another thing that's going to help you with in-game decisions is just experience. So activity is obviously like playing recently and warming up for games and being active that week. But experience builds over time. So for example, some players have been playing for many years, like Size has been playing since the very beginning, 2004 or 2005 or whatever. That's a hell of a long time. Many years of experience, and you're going to get better at the in-game decisions with experience. I've just put the picture up. I think that's some Russian veteran. It's the best picture I could come up with for experience. One really big thing and a lesson that's really good, that took me quite a long time to figure out, even though it sounds kind of obvious, is dealing with a problem properly later is better than dealing with it badly now. Now you may think, what the hell does that mean? So for example, let's say you are I don't know, let's say you're GLA, you've got a flamer in your base and he's flaming down all your stuff, and you've got a couple of quads on low HP. You send them quads in because you're going to deal with the problem badly this time. So you've got the couple of quads there, you panic, you want to kill this flamer as fast as possible. You've got these couple of quads, they're already low HP and he's doing a flame wall. If you send them in now, you'll be able to get a little bit of damage done against the flamer, but ultimately they're going to go down because this flame wall, and then you're going to ultimately lose the game. So that's dealing with it badly now. You've sent them weak quads in and they've died. Dealing with it properly later would be more like, okay, the flame is in your base, it's causing damage, you're going to lose a load of buildings anyway, that's decided. First option is the bad option. You're going to send the quads in, they're going to die, and you're going to lose the game. Or you can send them quads to a tunnel that might be nearby, get them back to 100 HP, and then go and fight the flamer. And this time, the quads win against the flamer, but you've lost an extra black market, or you've lost an extra supply, or something like that. But you've still dealt with it, and you've dealt with it properly later, a little bit later on. Yes, you've lost one black market or whatever, but it's better than dealing with it badly now, which is like you've dealt with it faster, but you've sent a load of, like a Fargo pop is a typical really good example of this. Like, he's got a load of Battlemasters approaching his base, he pops one quad and a load of RPGs, and a Battlemaster explodes and it kills everything because he's dealing with the problem badly now. He wants to deal with it now. The better thing would be to do regroup your army back at base, sacrifice a little bit of land, and then fight it properly later on. And again, here I've just put about activity. It's kind of just a filler, to be honest, because like I said, it can apply to everything here. But for example, if you've just done a recent base trade situation in a GLA versus USA game just an hour before a tournament, and it's fresh in your head what you did and what you did right, and you got the win or you got the loss, and then you go and play a tournament like an hour later, and then that exact same situation arises, but it's fresh in your head because you're active. It happened only 1 hour ago. What decision did you do an hour ago? Did it work? Did it not work? And what are you going to do about it this time? Chances are, as long as you're a smart person and you're going to react to what you did badly before or what worked before, you're going to learn from that experience and you're going to implement it better the next time. Or at least you should. That's what you should be doing. Yeah, I've just wrote there, you'll remember recent games. So let's say you've just played a Tox versus Infantry. It's fresh in your head. And then in a tournament, half an hour later, you get the exact same matchup. It's going to be fresh in your head. You've got fresh experience of playing that. Like the experience I've wrote here is the years of experience you've built over the years that you've been playing. So for example, Size has 15 years experience. He's gonna remember things over the years, older build orders and stuff like that. Whereas activity and like a warm-up is you recently playing. Next thing is multitasking. So it's about doing all of these things at once, not only coming up with your amazing grand strategy, your grand build order, but then also microing all your units. And whilst you're microing them 2Vs, also expanding over here, using your hotkeys, using your control groups, making a decision, doing all of these things at once. A really good example of this is when you're attacking into the enemy base and your army's fighting and you're microing all the units as best you can. But you've also got like 20 tanks back at home that also could be in the fight, but you're too occupied microing. And when those units then die, then you go back to your base and then you select those 20 tanks and then you go in. What you should have done is been fighting, multitask, go back to your base, get all those tanks, and reinforce your main attack that you're already doing. So you're multitasking. There's certain times when you can look back to your base, like for example, let's say you're using those 2Vs there, you're engaging a palace or whatever that is. Yeah, I don't even know what that is. A supply or something. I don't know what it is. So yeah, they're fighting, but then you select them and you click over here to a safe spot. Now they're going to reach that spot in 2 seconds, but you know you've clicked to a safe spot. It's not like you've clicked into the palace, you've clicked into a safe spot. So whilst you've clicked into that safe spot, you've got 2 seconds to quickly look back at your base, get them other tanks or get Vs or whatever you've done, and click where you need them to go. So then you can go back here. All that's supposed to be done within the 2 seconds or the 3 seconds or whatever. Then you can go back here, keep micro and keep fighting. And then you don't even have to look at that army that you've just clicked at to reinforce this. But then once you're fighting, they'll just rock up and reinforcements. Then you can micro it all in one. It's the key thing is knowing when to look back at your base. So you can use the control groups to help you. Double tap 1, double tap 2. It'll take you to your war factory or barracks or whatever you've control grouped. So map awareness, kind of linked to what I just said, but it's basically checking your flanks. Like whilst you're microing here. Remember, whilst you've clicked that safe spot, let's say over here, this little bit of land over here, you've got 2 seconds whilst they're going to that safe spot. You can quickly check your left flank, quickly check your right flank, quickly check back at your base. Are you being attacked? No, I'm not. Okay, go back to microing. That's a really good thing for map awareness. Like, has the enemy expanded to an oil? Has he expanded to another supply? Checking all of those things whilst you're doing this. It's kind of multitasking whilst you're microing, whilst you're macroing. You're doing all this kind of stuff at the same time. This is a really good one, and I remember, I think if you know a player called Poltz, like a StarCraft 2 legend, basically one of the best RTS players of all time. Maybe not the, or it might be the best player, I don't know. One of the best players of RTS games of all time for sure. And I think Rage has said this as well, is that you're not this guy with 4 arms or 5 arms or however many he's got. I think he's got 5 arms there. You're not able to do absolutely everything. You're not able to build 20 supplies on a massive map and control 4 armies and do everything here all in one go. But what you can do is prioritize what is going to win you the game, and that's something that Rage has said in the past. Like M2Vs there, micro and M2Vs is a very, very important thing. If you look back at your base for a second and like move a dozer into a corner, is that an important thing to be doing? Because is that going to win you the game? Are these 2Vs going to win you the game, microing the hell out of these and killing loads of units? Or is moving that dozer back in your base, or building another barracks, or building a fire base, is that key thing going to win you the game? So you got to think, is this thing that I'm focusing on right now? Like, I watched someone playing once and they spent like 15 seconds looking for a rebel that they'd lost, and they were trying to select under the trees, like trying to find their rebel. And meanwhile, there's massive fights going on all over the map. Where you could be flame walling down the side, or you could be doing a multitude of things. But this guy for like 15 seconds was looking for this rebel. Like this rebel, and there was like no oils to capture. It was just like purely for a scout or something. That is something that you would put way down your priority list. If you can't find the rebels, screw it, because you need to control your armies. You need to pop from this tunnel. You need to do all these kind of things. So you need to prioritize. Think, what is going to win me the game? Is moving this Chinook out of the way going to win me the game, or is this no eco going to win me the game when I kill all of his units just by the pure micro on these two things? So I'm not saying just focus on that. You still need to be knowing when to look back at your base and when to defend, and still be map aware. But sometimes if you are doing a no eco, for example, a really good example of it is some people, when they're doing a no eco, will try and move their Chinooks out of the way back in their base because a GAT's coming in or whatever. But the micromanagement of them TVs, sometimes it's more important to just sacrifice your Chinook back in your base and just control the hell out of those TVs, because a GAT in your base is not going to be able to kill all your buildings faster than those TVs will be able to kill all the buildings. So that's a really good example of it, actually, the no eco. Again, activity, I told you it applies everywhere. Multitasking and activity, just kind of self-explanatory, really. Mental game. So this is a big important thing that I've seen talked about on the forums multiple times. So if you Google what is the most complex thing in the universe, what do you think it is? You'd think, oh, it's like a black hole, or like the center of the earth, or like, I don't know, the microbes on a forest floor or something crazy. The actual, if you Google it, the most complex thing in the entire universe is the human brain. That's crazy, isn't it? To think the most complex thing is actually in your head. It's the thing that's processing everything that I'm saying right now is the most complicated thing. We don't fully understand dreams and how the human brain works. We understand some things, but there's also a lot of stuff we don't understand about the human brain. It's massively complex. So yeah, I mean, you might get nervous going into games, and you might be thinking, oh, why am I nervous, or whatever. Someone might be doing mind games, and that might be working against you. If you go and watch Fargo against Excal in the World Series Grand Finals, I definitely think like Fargo is like, I know Excal is a better player, and he was probably going to win that anyway, but I also think Fargo is probably mentally broken at that point. Yeah, so like nervousness is going to affect you, and it's all about how you deal with it, whether you're going to meditate or whether you've got a way of calming yourself down, or deep breaths or whatever. The mind is very complex, and yeah, it's probably a little bit down to you how you deal with things. I think I've started doing recently, well, I've always done this really, when I'm in a game, like, it doesn't matter if I'm against Size, or if I'm against Rage, or if I'm against anyone. Like, there's a certain level to zero, and you can't really go above it. It's not like you're playing a super AI. Once you've played all the best players, you've played all the best players. So once you're in the game, sometimes most of the time I just forget. I forget who I'm playing. I just think, okay, it's another really hard guy, and I just I'm able to just block it out. So for a really good example of this was I was playing a 3v3. I won't name any names, but I was playing a 3v3 DEFCON game. think it was like a challenge, or it was just like some for fun games on Game Ranger, and there was a certain guy in my team, and he was on one of the sides, and he was opposite Google. Now Google's a really beast DEFCON 6 player, and this guy in my team was like, oh, where is this certain player? Oh no, he's opposite me. And at that moment, I was thinking, well, you just forget who you're playing. Like, you played all these DEFCON pros, everyone's kind of the same level. Okay, certain players are a little bit better than others, but it's going to be a hard game regardless. Like, does it even matter who you're playing? And I thought at that point, you've already got it in your head. You're already mentally defeated. You know you're against Google. You're already panicking. And I thought that player at that point is done for. That side of DEFCON off flank on that side, who he's against, he's already mentally defeated. It doesn't matter how good he plays, or well, he's going to play bad because he's already got that in his head. Oh, I'm against Google, I'm going to get destroyed. So a pro tip from me, I mean, it might be all right for me to say because I've got all the experience and I'm confident and stuff, but if you're able to do it, forget who you're playing. Just completely forget it. Like, you're against a hard player. That's all you need to know. You need to carry out all this same stuff and just forget the name, because sometimes the name will make you do stupid stuff. It'll make you do a build order you don't normally do, or it'll make your micro really bad, or it'll make you panic or something like that. So if you're able to do it, just forget who you're playing. If it's like Fargo, for example, and he's like typing loads of stuff to you, just mute him on the press tab and just press mute. And I think, yeah, a massive part of that is experience, because I've played in so many tournaments before. I've played in so many challenges, all with high stakes, big tournaments and stuff like that. From experience, I'm just able to forget the name. I know I'm against a hard player. I'm going to play 100%. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. Controlling nerves. So, for example, yeah, like I said before, whether you're going to meditate or do deep breaths before your games, or I mean, if you're able to forget the name, this will probably help with that. Well, it definitely will help with that. So, yeah, I mean, like I said before, the mind is the most complex thing in the universe. So, yeah, who knows why you get nervous sometimes. But I do believe that if you do all the preparation, if you've reviewed this and you've come up with strong build orders, if you're confident in your micro and your macro, and you're experienced and you've been active recently and you're good at your multitasking and you've taken all this into account, I believe that all of these things feed into that. So, for example, do you think like Xgal, for example, gets nervous when he goes into a challenge against pretty much anyone? Probably 99% of the time, probably he doesn't. And the reason is because he's got such extreme confidence, because he knows his micro is unbelievable, because he controls his units and he controls his mouse with such precision that he's not going to lose them Vs, and he knows he's got the best build order because he's played it hundreds of times before, and he's trusting his macro, and all of this stuff kind of feeds into that. So if you're getting nervous, the chances are that you've not been active recently. So, for example, I'll give you a time when I was nervous. The World Series 2019 or 2020? I can't remember. Whichever year Shea knocked me out. Like that, those games going into it, even though like my score against Shea is like really, really good, I was nervous going into those games. And the reason was, like, thinking about it, I wasn't really active that week. I wasn't spamming against hard players and stuff like that. I knew that Shea had been like for hours before spamming against like Fargo, for example, and spamming loads of hard games. And I thought kind of I'm just going to win this. I'll just rock up. I'll just play against the hard AI before the games or whatever, just to warm my hands up. Don't need to practice against the pros and whatever. But actually, when I got into it and started like losing the first game, or did I lose the first game? I can't remember. But yeah, those games I was nervous going into. There's been a few in the past where I've been nervous, but what I've come to the conclusion is it's activity. I wasn't really active at that point, and I hadn't been really preparing at all. So that's kind of why I was nervous. So I believe if you fill in all of these things and focus on all of these things, I believe it really can help your mental game and build your confidence, and then stop you being nervous. But yeah, like I said, the mind is the most complex thing. So anything I haven't covered here, maybe everyone's different as well. As some people will be able to control their nerves maybe by meditating. If you're nervous going into big games, some people just won't be nervous at all. Some people are affected by like the mind games that people are saying easy during the games like Fargo and stuff, or the Flaming or whatever. And some people will be massively affected by this no matter what they do elsewhere. So yeah, it's very, very complex. Anyway, so I think you can use this guide for a number of things, understand why some players are so good, but you can also use it to probably identify why you lost a game. So for example, let's say you played a game and you review the replay. You might be able to see, okay, was my build order solid enough? Was my build order the most optimal? Did I get my oils early? Did I prepare? Was there anything else better I could have tested? Was my micro on point? I can guarantee you, if I watched any replay now, probably 99% of the things, like if I saw someone lose, I could probably put it down to one of these things. I mean, maybe the mental game is like getting all of them down. But for example, let's say they weren't nervous or whatever, that maybe it was their micro, maybe they lost a few units when they could have got more out of them, or maybe we saw their multitasking was pretty bad. But yeah, I can guarantee if you watched any of your replays and you want to know why you lost, you could probably pull this up and just check which part you think you faltered under and why a certain player beat you. So yeah, bit of a weird one, but I'm hoping this is quite a popular thing, and I'm hoping it helps at least some people. So yeah, I just wanted to get off my mind what we're on PowerPoint, by the way. It's an upgrade from Paint, isn't it? Although I do have Paint 3D now, so maybe we'll bring that back at some point. But yeah, it's kind of a brain dump, to be honest. And like I said, yeah, you can either use it you can use it for whatever you want. Reviewing your own replays, reviewing why you think a certain player is so good, or working out where you need to improve, or yeah, whatever. Let me know what you thought of this one in the comments. Bit of a random one, but yeah, like I said, I hope you find it useful. I'm sure it will help at least some people. But if it doesn't help you and you've got another way of looking at things, or you think I've glaringly obviously missed something here, please drop it in the comments, or let me know if you want to see any more guides like this in the future. So GG, well played, and see you on the battlefield.